Reaching pinnacle performance levels in SNOWRUNNER require customizations and driver skill. Choosing the right motor, suspension, and gearbox are all essential parts to have success in the off-roading world. However, the most pivotal customization that brings all those things together are tires. But moreover than that, the knowledge of the driving surface you're up against. In this video, we will offer guidance on how to effectively navigate through deep, muddy conditions and make recommendations on how to increase performance as well. And lastly, we will provide some information on those tire types to take into consideration with these mud running tips. So without wasting any more time, here are some tips for mud running. On this off-road adventure, understanding how to effectively navigate mud will get you to locations faster and you'll be winching less frequently. Before we actually talk about driving mechanics, let's briefly describe the different types of mud. The game has 3 different types of mud that can be encountered throughout the regions: dry, wet, and underwater mud. Shallow patches of any of those 3 aren't usually a problem for trucks with any tires, but the challenge increases quickly in deeper areas. Dry mud is usually easy to spot and deal with. However, since it has the same look as dirt roads or trails, you can be surprised when your truck suddenly slows down and starts sinking in what you thought was solid, dry dirt. Truthfully, there aren't many dry mud patches where you can really get stuck though. Wet mud takes a lot of traction out of your tires compared to dry mud. As the game progresses, you will encounter this type of mud a lot more, and the low grip tires that you have currently will need to be retired for your own sanity. The third and last type of mud is underwater mud. This type of mud doesn't only add resistance from displacing the layer of water covering it, but it seems the wet mud underneath gets a slight boost of treachery, making this type of mud some of the worst terrain to tackle in the game. The wetness makes the mud slippery, yet the underwater mud creates more resistance from the water layer that lies above. The wetness factor is also increased, which will decrease traction even further. During a comparison test, it was revealed that every time you increase the difficulty level of the mud texture, you reduce the vehicle's maximum cruising speed by half. When planning a course across the muddy area, try to aim at anything that isn't underwater. Then, navigate toward any mud that is above that waterline. This will have double the grip value from what's underneath the surface. Another useful thing to know is that as annoying as they are, debris like rocks and fallen trees have greater grip value than any mud really. So grab as many as you can handle when crossing a pond or a mud patch. Okay, so how do we navigate through this? Now that we understand mud, the first tool we need to properly use is all-wheel drive and differential locking. All-wheel drive is usually fine in shallow mud with adequate forward movement, yet in deep spots, activating differential locking is a must. Some areas like Michigan can be traveled on successfully without all-wheel drive while yet having differential locking. The importance of all-wheel drive in combination with differential locking is evident when driving in low gear while pulling a heavy load. Without differential locking, the power distribution on the wheels is very uneven and will cause some wheels to stop working, in turn losing precious grip. This is why all-wheel drive must be combined with differential locking further in the game as terrain gets less and less forgiving. Differential locking is arguably one of the best features for the toughest of off-road trails. Even vehicles without all-wheel drive noticeably benefit from the activation of that powerful asset. However, it is optimal to have the all-wheel drive and diff lock to get yourself out of the deepest of mud. Next is the controversial subject of weight having impact on traction. Although there are arguments that weight doesn't affect grip, it indeed impacts these values. This has been confirmed by representatives from Focus Home and Sabre as well. Adding weight on the vehicle's bed will aid in traction. However, how much each tire can handle is a balancing act. Yet, the gain of traction is real. A lot of tires that have low grip values can be made useful from adding the right amount of weight on them. With a wider set tire, more weight is needed to push the tire down into the mud. By doing this, you allow more of the tread to grip onto the elements. Pushing your tires farther into the mud might seem counterproductive, yet if too much of your tire is on top of the mud surface, you won't be getting the most grip the tire can provide. This requires knowledge that a wider tire can handle more weight and receive increased traction without getting bogged down like a narrow track tire. Also, something we need to understand is the difference between carrying weight and pulling weight. The addition of weight on a 2 or 4 slot hitch trailer behind you will decrease grip, which is pulling weight. This will also add resistance against forward movement. On the other hand, carrying weight is the cargo that is packed on the vehicle's frame or via low or high saddle. This adds weight on the vehicle's rear axles, which in turn adds grip, which we explained. In tougher, heavy areas, the best gearboxes for traversing mud would be the Fine Tune and the Off-Road Gearbox. A lot of high-powered trucks in the game tend to wheel spin whether they are driving empty or pulling heavy cargo loads. Combine this with a smaller tire size and you can see that they can quickly dig themselves into trouble within a few seconds. This is where gearboxes become very important. When driving through a long, deep mud strip with the all-wheel drive and differential locking engaged, put the gearbox at the lowest speed and gradually increase the fine-tune low gear lever position or the throttle inputs on your controller. As soon as you see mud being flung around the rear tires, reduce the speed until this stops. This is your maximum efficient speed for this setup. With most tires, when mud chunks are being flung around, your truck is slowly sinking toward a fully bogged down position. The best possible traction you can get out of any tire is that fine line just before it starts spinning too much. Keep this in mind and your overall times using the winch will significantly drop. However, there are some exceptions to this general rule. Some tires like the OHS2 are actually capable of picking up speed under heavy wheel spin with the right conditions. This is for you to discover, and again, weight and the depth of the mud surface can change the result. Bumpers, fenders, and spare wheels may only seem like visual improvements for your truck, but those can have impacts on your struggles with mud. Some bumper designs will obviously give you more ground clearance than others. In general, choosing one that rides high with a good departure angle will make things easier for you. Choosing one for your truck is a matter of function over looks, and it's really up to your preferences. Rear fenders are also amazing at snagging onto trees and generating drag through mud. If there is an option to remove these on your truck, get rid of them without hesitation. Most American trucks have the spare wheel option that's located under the frame, and unfortunately, it reduces ground clearance for that section of the vehicle. If you can live without a spare wheel, do not install one. Putting too much weight on your wheels and letting wheel spin go unchecked is the best way to get bogged down in SNOWRUNNER. In some cases, if you come to a complete stop while crossing a muddy river, there is a possibility that your only way out is to use the winch. For the rest of the scenarios where it feels like you're really stuck in there good, whatever the reason, here are a few tricks on how to get out of it. Tires have the biggest impact on off-road performance. If you don't have the right one equipped, even the best truck can let you down. There are 3 general tire shapes in the game: single narrow, single wide, and double. This category includes the following tires: single narrow tires have good weight distribution, however, due to the width of the tracks, they will get overwhelmed under heavy loads. The best mud performer in this category is the OHS2. Its thread pattern extends to the sidewalls, so with the right amount of weight, this tire can ignore wheel spin and slice through thick mud with ease. For even better weight distribution, you need wider tracks. There really are only 2 popular tires in this category: the MHS2 and the famous TMHS Tega mud tire. A characteristic that is very specific to these 2 tire types is their slow and steady behavior in mud. The perfect friction point is at very low speed, and trying to give it any more throttle will generally induce wheel spin, reduce your overall speed, and start digging a hole. The TMHS, or known as the Tega tire, is often the better choice for deep driving conditions. However, since very few popular work trucks can actually equip this tire, unless you only use those who can, you will have to live without this tire most of the time. This is the one we begin our journey with. From the highway tire to the all-terrain and then finally to the off-road until you reach Tamir, these are the most common tire sets you will encounter. There are a total of 12 different tire models to choose from in this category, but sadly, not every vehicle in the game gets all 12 in their lineup. Here are the 4 types of double tires. The highway tire is pretty much the only one you'll be using for the first map, assuming you start in Michigan like any normal person. While we generally can't wait to replace them, with a proper drivetrain and driver skill, there isn't much you can't do with them while you're waiting for the all-terrain tires to unlock. Even using the few upgrades available to us, we were able to push these tires to a point we didn't think was remotely possible when we started playing this game at launch. According to the data, the UHD2 is the best available variant for mud. Also, an interesting fact is, it is the only tire option whose front and rear treads are different. A big relief when unlocked, the all-terrain double is the next step in performance for most medium trucks. Since the off-road tires unlock only a few levels after this one, this is probably the least played tire type in the game. To get the most out of this off-road contender, we recommend choosing the UAD2 variant for your trucks. Because of its added grip, vehicles lacking drivetrain upgrades like the Ford CLT 9000 and the International Transstar can now venture farther and pull off more impressive deliveries when using the UAD. Available on 23 different vehicles in the game, this is what most American trucks have as a top-end off-road tire. At this point, the game gets a lot easier with this tire as soon as it's equipped. The best threads for this tire is found on the UOD2, made very obvious by the aggressive, spaced-out design. This is one of the best overall tire types in the game. The OHD1 has the highest mud grip rating in this category, but in general, if you have this tire type as an option, they will prove to be very, very strong. The OHD is not only available on some of the best medium trucks in the game, but on a select few heavy trucks as well. The wide square stance the rear axles get from the tire gives it amazing lateral stability. Because of its wide rear track profile, more weight is required to push down the tires. But just like the Tega tire, this one is very powerful when you know what you're doing. Another interesting fact is it's also found on the Dairy Longhorn 4520, which is exclusively used as a single narrow on all axles. This is also the only option for trucks like the P16, the P512, and the Cat 770G as well, which isn't such a downside given its top-notch ratings. So in conclusion, this video has been in the making for over 6 months. Max Power has spent more hours testing than anyone I know, and if I were to actually give you the number, I don't think you would believe me. So after some collaborations, we hope you enjoyed the video. Something you might have noticed throughout the video is that we did not cover much on mud tires. This was to put emphasis on other tire sets that can have significant impact on performance under the right circumstances. Mud tires are obviously a great option, but not all trucks can equip them. Some of those tire sets are actually as good as the mud variants, and others are still viable with those tips we talked about. Some key takeaways from this video would be the knowledge of your driving surface, customizing your truck for off-roading, proper usage and combination of all-wheel drive and differential locking, choosing the right tire variants, and all those mud running techniques. So in closing, not all trucks are made equal, especially when it comes to tires, yet you can still have a successful adventure with what the game gives you. I hope this video gave you a fresh, new perspective about driving surfaces and tires. Please feel free to like and subscribe and share the video as well. So, until next time, God bless and stay upright.